So we're back with the same page that we discovered the first SQL injection with, and I said we'll get back to it because there is more that I want to do in here. I want to show you how to start retrieving data from the database. So remember what we said at the start, where we said this page, for example, is loading products, and what we want to do is we want to inject an SQL statement in it to load data from the users table and hopefully get the username and the password for the admin. So even if the admin page is not vulnerable, we'll be able to log in as a normal admin. We can do this because we know that whatever we post, whatever we put in here is being executed by the web application, is being sent to the database engine, and the database engine is executing that query. Therefore, we want to add queries in here that would be useful to us. We're going to be using the union select queries to select data from the database, but before we do that, we need to determine the number of columns that are being loaded. And this also can be used to discover SQL injections anyway. So this would be another thing that you should do to verify that the target page is vulnerable to an SQL injection. So we know that if we add comma and 1 is equal to 1, the page loads normally. If we add comma and page 1 is equal to 0, we can see that the page is breaking. Now another test we can do is we use the order by clause. We can say I want to order by 1. And as you can see now, the page loads fine. So we're saying we want to order by the first column. But then if I say I want to order by a really high number, so we know that there is no way that this database contains this many columns, but we're saying we want to order by this column, and we're going to hit enter, you'll see that the page will break. So again, this is another way for you to know if this page is executing whatever SQL queries you're adding. But the order by can also be used to determine the number of columns. So if we do order by 1, the page loads. If we do order by a really big number, the page breaks. Now what if we do order by 5? Page breaks again. That means there is less than 5 columns. Let's do order by 3, page breaks again. And let's do order by 2, and the page loads. So now we know that there is only 2 columns being selected in here. This is very simple. In this example, we only have 2. So you could have just started using your select statement with 2 columns. But sometimes you have targets that might have 20 columns or 15 columns, and I've had that before. Therefore, you would have to try 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to 20. Now it's a bit time consuming, but obviously you can do it. But this is a quicker way of doing it. Also, like I said, it's a really good way for you to verify that the target is vulnerable. The next thing you want to do, once we know that we have 2 columns, is start building up your union select. Now, this is going to be the statement that we're going to use to select data from the database. So as you can see, the backend itself is actually using a select statement to select data from the database. So we're going to be using another select statement that will be appended to the existing select statement. And therefore, before we start using our select, we're going to have to say union, because the union keyword allows us to run 2 select statements within the first query. So as you can see, the web application is using a select statement by itself, and we're going to be injecting our statement in here. And that's why we're going to say union first, and then we're going to build our statement. So we're going to say union select. And then we need to see where can we inject data so that we can see it on the page. And that's why we usually do 1 and 2, because we want to see where are we going to see 1 and 2 on the page if the page is vulnerable. Now, if we do that, it's not going to work. So let me show you what's going to happen. In my courses, when you would have done this, if you have a valid SQL injection, and we know we have a valid SQL injection because we verified it using a number of ways, the page should have loaded normally, and you should have seen either 1 or 2 or both being displayed on the page. But in this case, this is not happening because the target is using a different database engine than MySQL. So in my courses, I showed you how to do this with SQL. In this example, we don't have MySQL. Now we still don't know what we have, but we can see that this is not working. And therefore, again, I'm going to include a cheat sheet, but this comes with experience. When this happens, you can just do null instead of 1, 2, just to verify again that everything is working. And again, you're back, the page is loading again. So now that we know, okay, well, our SQL injection still works, it's just it needs a different way of exploiting it. And it's probably using a different database engine than what we're used to. If you've also done my courses, we need to see where can we inject data and which of these can we inject data so that we can see it on the page. And that's why we usually do 1 and 2, but we see that 1 and 2 doesn't work. And therefore, in this case, so let me just do it here because it's bigger. So we have null, null, and we want to see where can we inject data. So instead of this null, I'm going to do a, for example, like this as a string. So let's do that in here. So we're just going to do a, and perfect. So we know that anything that we put in here in the first entry before the first comma, whatever we put in here will be displayed on the page. And therefore, if we substitute that with an actual value that we want to select from the database, it should be displayed in here. So let me show you real quick. Again, this goes back to the cheat sheet. Let me actually just load a good cheat sheet that I want to show you in here. So you can see, like I said before, you could see the different type of comments that you can play with, the different ways you could select a database version. So usually I would start with trying with MySQL because that's the most common. Again, that's what you would have seen in my courses. You should try the others, but I know that this example is actually PostgreSQL. Therefore, we're going to put that in here in the A, and we shouldn't have the quotes around it. Hit enter. So as you can see in here, you have a very interesting entry, and in here you have the exact version of the database engine. So now that we know, if we want to exploit this further, we need to use database queries that work with PostgreSQL. You can also see the database engine is running on this version of Debian. So obviously this could be very useful for post exploitation later on. But going back to the cheat sheet now, if you want to get anything, you're going to scroll down to the PostgreSQL queries. Now, the next goal is to actually start selecting data from useful tables. So hopefully from a user's table that contains usernames and passwords.